This issue hijacked the conference. Syria, it took center stage, perhaps the most pressing issue abroad after the chemical attack there yesterday. President Trump pinning the blame on the Obama administration for not solving the crisis a long time ago. But the president was asked, what are you going to do? Has it crossed a line for you?
It crossed a lot of lines for me. When you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, with a chemical gas that is so lethal, people were shocked to hear what gas it was. That crosses many, many lines, beyond the red line, many, many lines.
Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Ambassador Nicholas Burns. And from your perspective here, it's so interesting. King Abdullah was supposed to be there to talk primarily about the peace process. And then, of course, this issue came up in the last 24 hours. The president in 2013 was saying we should stay the hell out of Syria. He even tweeted it. Now he says his opinion has changed. What next?
I think he's got to be careful here because this is the greatest humanitarian crisis in the world today. It's also where the Islamic State is. There's a raging civil war. And when the president says that many lines have been crossed, it begs the question, so what are we going to do? I think three things have happened. Number one, the president's initial inclination coming into office, he said we can work with Russia, maybe Syria, against the Islamic State. No more. We can't work with this murderous regime. We can't be aligned with them, and certainly not the Russians. So we're going to have to create our own coalition, maintain it against the Islamic State. Second, the president has stopped all refugee admissions into the United States, which is an extraordinary decision. But this is the greatest refugee crisis since World War II in Syria. 7 million refugees inside the country, 5 million outside. We have to take some of the pressure off Jordan. King Abdullah standing next to the president today. Off Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon, Germany. We have to take in our share of Syrian refugees. And third, we've got to help the opposition in Syria combat the government of Syria.
Well, let's go back to the Russian issue, because Vladimir Putin and the Russians are obviously helping Assad, the leader of Syria. Putin is already pushing back on a United Nations resolution to sanction Syria, which is, it'd be funny if it weren't so disgusting, because they have 20 resolutions against Israel, none against anybody else, maybe 4 measly ones out there. But Putin is also saying that blaming Assad is fake news, fake information. So we need, by your recommendation, to just stop dealing with the Russians on this?
I think on this issue, we should not be in league with the Russians. The Russians aided and abetted the Syrian government. Secretary Tillerson said yesterday, Russia and Iran have to claim some responsibility for what the Assad government is doing in gassing, using sarin gas against their own people, killing nearly 100 people, wounding many, many others, and there have been repeated chemical weapons attacks against the civilians. So I think Secretary Tillerson said the right thing. It's what the president should be saying, and we ought not to be aligning ourselves with the Russians.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, of course, the Israeli peace situation. Listen, King Abdullah has a very good, sort of quiet relationship with the Israelis, and I don't know, they haven't had real military action since, what, the Six-Day War, and not to mention the fact that in 1994 there were the peace accords. But this is what he said, and I want you to hear this and then react to it, because it seemed to be quite the olive branch. Listen.
It is the most comprehensive framework for lasting peace, and it ensures statehood for the Palestinians, but also security, acceptance, and normal ties for Israel with all Arab countries and hopefully all Islamic countries.
Do you believe that?
Well, I think what we've learned over many decades is you can never stop working for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. So President Trump, I think, is right to put a focus on this. If Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, is one of his trusted advisors, right to put him on that. You also need to bring in Secretary Tillerson. The expertise on this very complex issue is from the State Department. But I think, the Trump administration should pursue this, understanding it's going to be a very, very tall mountain to climb.